corn.
You see, go and show them the squirrel corn first.
What's that?
That's it. That's the squirrel corn. All right. And down underneath there.
Well, wait a minute.
All right. You get it going.
Okay. Take. Okay. Go ahead.
All right, girls and girls. Here, this is he called squirrel corn. Do you know why they call it squirrel corn? This is something I just learned, because underneath, see, it looks just like a little piece of corn on the cob, doesn't it? Or a corn you eat. All right. Do you know who puts all these flowers here?
No.
Well, God did, but who else? Who planted them? Who sows the seeds?
I don't know. The factory.
No, the birds and the animals. You know how the animals carry the seeds?
Oh.
On their fur.
Just
They go through here, and the seeds will drop off on their fur, and then when they run through the woods, the seeds drop off, and then when it rains or in the winter time, they start growing. They sow little seeds, more flowers for you. When I was a little girl, I was just your age, when we went to the country school, and we went to the woods, and we learned all about the birds of the flowers. We learned the trilliums, the the violets, jack-in-the-pulpits, and cowslips, and all the kinds. But I think this is fascinating, that they call this corn.
But where does it get its name squirrel?
Well, somebody went to the woods, and he must have loved flowers, so he gave these flowers different names. And so that's how they got it. It's maybe because it's got that, looks like corn, so they call it cornflower. And then the Dutchman breeches. What do the Dutchman breeches look like?
So it's called like pants.
They look like, yes, they've got like little panties with little ruffles on them, yellow. And they're on a stem, like hanging on a clothesline.
So if the birds and animals made it, then
they sowed the seed.
Yes, they did.
Mm-hmm.
And with this little seed, it doesn't look like a corn seed like farmers grow.
Mm-hmm. No, that's right. But it's similar to what?
But it's called squirrel seed, right?
Well, you could call it probably, but I think corn, because it looks like a piece of corn. Your little, that breaks off the corn cob.
Yes.
It's yellow.
Yeah.
And somebody named it, but I think it's beautiful. And there's nothing prettier than go to the woods and look at all the wildflowers around you and say, and you know what I do? I thank God that we have these, and I have a chance to go to look at them and enjoy them. We learn this, and you learn something that boys and girls in the city don't see this. See how much they miss by living in the city and no flowers around them like this, out in the country, nice fresh air. So we're very, very lucky.
That we live in the
So
country.
we thank God when we go to bed at night. First, say thank you, God, for all the beautiful things that you give us.
Okay.
Light, camera, action.
All together.
Light, camera, action.
Okay. Okay, go ahead and tell the story, Grandma.
What story you want me to tell them?
Just tell them about just sitting around like you.
All right. Now we talked about who gave us all these beautiful flowers. Have any of you girls got a flower garden?
Yeah, and we have two in the front.
Yeah. Do you have a wildflower garden?
No.
Do you go out and pick dandelions?
Sure.
What do you do with dandelions? The stems. All right. What did you do with the dandelions?
I blow when they turn into puffy things. I blow them off.
Mm-hmm. What else can you do with the dandelions?
You can make a wish and blow them.
Yeah. What else?
You can also, you can pretend it's like, and you can grab them and those white things, the dandelion, and then take all those things off, and then you can blow them out of your hand.
And then you can make chains out of them. You pull those stem off, and then you click them 2 or 3 of the dandelion stems together and make a chain, hang down. Did you ever do that?
No.
Yeah, they're pretty. Let's see, what else? And now, so none of you girls have started a flower bed. But maybe someday your mommy or your daddy will give you a little spot and have a little flower bed. I had a little flower bed when I was a little girl, and I got to go down there where I lived. They tore the house down where I lived. And so I've got to see if my flower bed, if they destroyed my flower bed that was there for 80, well, I was probably about 8, 9 years old when I started it. And I'm 85 now. So, and so I've got to go down there where I was born and see if my flower bed is still there. It's just down the road, down the street a little ways. And I did take some of my flowers when I got up to where I live now and planted them. So I still have some of my flowers that I planted years ago. Like the lilies of the valley. You know what a lily of the valley is?
It's a little valley where orange and red flowers.
Yeah, they're white and they're very beautiful and they have a nice smell. So when you get your garden started, I'll give you some lilies of the valley. But do you know where I got those lilies of the valley when I was a little girl? I helped an elderly lady, Mrs. Ennis, Grandma Ennis. We used to go to the woods, and she gave me some lilies of the valley. So I planted them where I was born in my little flower bed. So when I got married and lived where I am now, I got some lilies of the valley there. They're growing all over. And so now I'm giving them to a lady that I went down to the Ennis house the other day, and the lilies of the valleys are all gone. So I said to her, I have the original lilies of the valley that came from this farm. So I told her I would dig her up a plot of them, some of them, bring them back so she could start the lilies of the valley that Grandma Ennis had many, many, many years ago. So this is how you start getting flowers to grow. You get them from somebody else and you start them, and then after you've had them a long time, you give them to somebody else. And so a lot of my flowers today were given to me when I was little, because I took them with me when I moved from my mother's house where I am now. Well, I had a house next to the store, and then where I am now. I only lived in a couple houses, and I never moved out the alleyway. I was born and brought up there. And so, what other flowers do you like?
Okay, hold on for a second. Go ahead, you're live.
Have you got any questions you want to ask Grandma?
I have a question. If flowers grow by birds, do they bring the seeds that they brought and then just put them in the ground?
No, what they do, well, they could, because they dig down in the ground too sometimes, the birds do, to get worms. But the birds will go through, and the seeds from the plants get on their fur, or they peck them and drop them off. And then they get it on their fur or their feathers, and they drop off, and then it rains, and then they add a little while, they get down the ground and they start growing. And the animals are the same. Like your kitty cat. If you've got a kitty cat or a dog, they go out in the fields, they come back, and they got all this stuff all over them. You've seen cats with things, stuff all over them. Mom has to clean it all up. Well, they bring those seeds in, and they shake themselves, and the seeds fly around, and they start growing. So
it's like a bumblebee when it gets some pollen.
Yeah.
And then when it goes to another flower,
Yeah.
it spreads there around that flower.
That's right. Yes, they could too. Yes, bees and flies and different things. They get that pollen on their legs and they scatter it around where they light. It'll drop off there. Yeah, there was so many little things that our animals do that we don't know about, isn't it? Is there any other questions you'd like Grandma to know about, or you ask Grandma?
Well, if plants live and you can't, and you're just looking at them all around you, and you see around the woods, and it's like it's just like a little graveyard with all these flowers around you.
Because you see them in the cemeteries, you see all the flowers in the cemeteries, yeah. It could be, yeah, maybe years back, way back when all this land was settled. That's probably what they had graveyards, and they probably took flowers like this and planted them on there in the graves.
So when
do animals, you plant, bury the animals and put flowers on them too. I do. Remember Katie? My cat Katie? Yeah. We use a lot of things in different ways, but I think this is beautiful. This is like heaven here because it's so quiet, and all these beautiful flowers that God made for us that we have here. We should enjoy them, but we shouldn't destroy them. Lots of times they destroy them by fires. Of course, fires destroy them. People are destroyed when they cut down trees.
Like wildfires.
Yeah, well, yes, wildflowers yes, it just cleans them right up. So is there anything else you want to know about?
Through wild flowers, when does the generation start? I mean...
Well, way back. Way before my time and your time, and way back, flowers started in God's time. Way back, we had flowers. There were things that... And then a man, also, they used to plant seeds and things and start the flowers growing. So the Indians did too. The Indians had different things. They planted corn and things, and they had different things that they used to make beads and things. So even the flies, they got flies up here in the woods. Now, is there anything else? And don't you love to go to the woods and walk through and hear these leaves crackle? Oh, I love that crackling noise under my feet. Don't you? Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think this is beautiful here. Aren't we happy? We're lucky. We're really lucky to have such beautiful scenery and the beautiful flowers and a nice place, quiet. It's
very beautiful.
Very beautiful, yes it is. We should appreciate it. And you should tell your friends too that you went to the woods. When you go to school, you just tell your teacher you went to the woods and saw some beautiful flowers. Can you remember the name? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What are they?
Trillium.
Yeah, but I don't see no violets. I like violets, adder tongues, jack-in-the-pulpits, ferns, but this is dry. The woods that I go to is very wet.
And dry.
And so you have to, there's little streams of water go through, and my grandson loved to walk all those logs that went across them and see if they could fall in the water, see if they could stay on the logs. And then sometimes they got wet.
Over there, huh?
Hannah's too big. Hannah's too heavy. She broke them.
Okay, go over and sit with Grandma.
Crack.
Crash.
I wonder if we can do that.
Yeah.
Crack.
Okay. Now we're going
All
to hear
right.
this. Now we're going to hear the story of how
I went to the woods.
Grandma learned about the flowers in the woods, and now it's going to tell you how she passes it down to you.
To mine. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Well, Grandma went to a country school right across where I live, that school. And Mr. Bish, he'd load us, all those kids, on the back of his truck, and we'd go up to the Benning Woods up the road, and we'd be and go to the woods. And the teacher would be with us, and there was probably from the 1st grade to the 8th grade. And after the 8th grade, then they went to Lyons School. They graduated from there. And so we had books the teacher knew all about. She had pictures and books and things about the wildflowers. Sometimes we'd go to the woods, and I remember where the farmers would maybe take a cow or something would die and put it out in the woods there. I always remembered that. Then when I got older, then I used to go to the woods, the Rooks' woods back of Eddie Marriett's house. And they had streams there. Well, they started one time, years back, they were going to put a railroad through there, but they never finished it. And there was a bank and there's water, and the logs would go across, it'd fall off, the trees would fall off and go over the water. And I'd take my grandchildren up there, and his friends, and they used to love to walk those logs and see who would fall in, and push each one in. They loved that, because that was woods that were very wet, but they had all kinds of flowers in it. They had trilliums, Dutchman britches, violets, adder tongues, but that's how. And so I always, as my children grew up or came along, I took them to the woods, and I also take my neighbor boys and girls to the woods too, and my grandchildren's friends. That's how some of the town kids learned how my grandson's friends learned about the woods and enjoyed it, and they still remember it. And they call me Grandma Engels too. They're big boys, and they call me Grandma, just like my own grandchildren. So that's how I learned about going to the woods, because I love nature. I loved animals, and then I've got to go to the woods yet, and then I love the quietness too. It's very quiet in the woods. And when you hear a bird, or once in a while you look up, and there's a big bird up there in the trees, looking down at you, and it's really nice. And then I thank God. I said, thank you, God, for all the things we have today. So this is how you learn about, as you grow older, you will probably remember this day too, and you will tell your children when you grow up, or you tell other boys and girls that you went to the woods and learned in. But as you grow older, you'll remember this day of coming to the woods with your mother and your friends. Okay?
Okay.
Let's go on a hike.
Let's go.
Yay! Okay.
Okay.
Look at this trillium. Did you know there was a trillium right down here by?
Want me to carry a bag for you?